So all you guys who didn't hear about PepsiCo 10, hopefully you'll hear about it after this. As you notice, they're pouring Coke outside, so I've been drinking water all day and night. Luckily, I didn't get in time. Well, not luckily. Unfortunately, I didn't get in time enough to come out to any of the parties last night, but I was really hoping to be able to do that. But I just want to really say thank you, especially to iMedia for having me. It was wonderful, and DMG overall for helping us with PepsiCo 10. It's a phenomenal program. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But more importantly, thank you to all of you guys. It's always amazing that people actually come out to hear anything that I have to say. So good luck. If you were at DMA last week, then you're in luck because the back end of this presentation is what I didn't get to present there. But if you were at if you were at OMA Social, then you've seen all this. I would just leave the room now, and we can pretend. Apparently, I need to get a new presentation. So really quickly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with a little bit of what keeps me up at night, and then how we're turning that into an innovation culture, and kind of 4 planks and steps that we're trying to approach, and I'm going to go through some programs and stuff like that. I'm going to try to hurry up and finish so there's enough time for Q&A, so I might skip through a couple of videos. But let me just talk. Anybody heard of Performance with Purpose as the PepsiCo business ethos? Well, I'm going to tell a quick story. So Performance with Purpose is basically the reason why I took the role at PepsiCo. I remember when I was first looking at the job, or when I first heard about it, I told my girlfriend, and so she was really concerned about me taking a new job, and she found this article in Fortune that had Indra in it. And so she kept telling me, read the article, read the article, read the article. So of course, when she said that, it meant that I didn't have to read the article. So what she did, realizing that I wasn't reading the article, there's randomly this Post-it board on the side of in our bedroom. I don't know why. It's still there, though. So she started writing quotes. It's still there 2 years later. She started writing quotes from this article in there. One of the quotes she wrote was Performance with Purpose. And so she started telling me that it was this vision that this new CEO had, or Indra at that time was about 1.5 years old, around how do you become the reference company, or what the company of the future really should look like. And basically, so I started reading, and basically what I read was this vision of this leader who believes that, so Performance with Purpose for us, it's our sustainability ethos. So it's the belief that we can build sustainable growth by investing in a healthier future for people and planet. And you see stuff like the reduction of plastic in our Aquafina bottles, the launching of the most aggressive recycling program, the Sun Chips bag, which I'm sure you guys have heard of, all those kind of things. But what she's done here is she said, look, in order for this to be successful, in order for a company to truly be sustainable, you have to put this at the core of the business. So it makes more sense for us to buy recycled plastic because it's cheaper. Well, we're the largest purchaser of recycled plastic. We can't buy any more, so let's become the largest recycler because it makes business sense. So what she's done is she now measures the business against these 2 planks. So you have to perform, and we're a company of performance, and that's what we do for a living, but at the same time, you have to do it in a purposeful way. And so what's so amazing is that this is how she measures every single leader within the business. But what it said to me was, here is somebody who knows how to change culture, somebody who knows how to put ideals at the core of business. And that's somebody who I want to have a chance to work for. So the first ideal I thought would be important for us as an organization is how do we open ourselves up to just being a conversational. So we have 250,000 employees. So it's one thing for Indra to stand up and talk about Performance with Purpose. It's another thing for all 250,000 employees to be online where every single person has a chance to ask them if we as an organization are really living up to Performance with Purpose. So this whole notion of building accountability by humanizing the organization and putting that at the core. So that's why I took the role. Here's who I am, and I'm going to talk about that notion of core. Here's who I am, Global Director of Digital and Social Media. What I'm going to talk about is digital R&D. And what I'm going to talk about is how do you then put a digital mindset at the core of your organizations. And I truly believe that in order for organizations now to build competitive advantage, it's not enough just to believe that digital is a part of marketing, but it has to be core to the business. And even more than that, I think it has to be core to executives. So there are a lot of CMOs or a lot of senior advertising or marketing executives that can look at a TV ad and have a gut reaction to whether it's good or bad. But there are very few that can look at digital and have a gut reaction as to whether it's good or bad. So how do we change that? And that's what I'm going to talk a lot. I heard the tackiest thing to do was to show the cover of my new book. So I decided we'll get that out of the way on slide 3. It's a he said, she said book. There's another author, Steph Agresta, who's actually a good writer, so I would encourage you to read her section at least, but it is available. It came out on October 4th. Okay, last shameless plug. So why are we really here? And so this is what keeps me up at night. And this is the question, right? Is Google making us stupid? What's interesting about this article is that the guy says every technology that has transformed society the most has done it without us even knowing it. And he talks about the clock. And he talks about how the clock, before the clock, you would eat when you wanted to, you would go to sleep when you wanted to, you would wake up when you wanted to, and then after the clock, people ate at a certain time, went to sleep at a certain time. It changed society so much so that people started saying, I operate like clockwork. And what he talks about is, he's an English professor, and he says, I can no longer read War and Peace, because the interfaces such as Google have trained me to be unable to digest long-form content. And he's been transformed without even knowing it. Here's Scrabble, a very harmless game. A good friend of mine was playing Scrabble on Facebook with her father, and her father passed away. And till this day, the game reminds her to ask her father to take his turn. Well, what this is this notion of digital death. And so a person on my team is actually writing, and I know it's morbid, but it'll set up a point. But a person on my team is actually writing her thesis on digital death. And what it talks about is, what do we as a 100% connected society do when we're facing mortality? And what are the transformations that are happening to us in terms of the absence of the grieving, or in terms of profiles being used as memories of people? What is that actually doing to us as a society? Other thing I find interesting is that not only, I read a lot of magazines, so you're going to see a lot of magazine covers. Not only does Google want to make us stupid, but they also want our mind, which would be interesting, but it's actually true. And so here's a study that was done on the brain usage of Amazon when you're reading a book. When you're reading a book, I say Amazon, but when you're reading a book versus when you're doing a Google search. And what's interesting is that we're actually potentially being rewired as a society in ways that we don't even know. This is actually the generation that we should probably be thinking about the most, right? 85% of Americans right now have broadband access. We all know that. We're all in the space. Every day, one of those 15% dies, and one of these new, for the first time ever, truly born digital people emerge. So we are, as a society, approaching 100% digital connectivity. So what does that really mean? Well, if you look at the only close microcosm that we have, which is Korea, which is 98% digitally connected, they just recently announced that internet addiction is a real addiction, so much so that they believe 10% of their youth population is already addicted to the internet, and 30% are at risk. In schools, they teach how to use the internet responsibly. They sing songs. They have banner ads and posters, just like I remember growing up with your brain on drugs. Another piece of research shows that, in fact, dopamine levels are risen by the usage of these technologies in the exact same way that it happens with cocaine. So maybe these technologies are actually a drug. In fact, maybe we're being drugged into a participatory society, and Twitter is the gateway drug. And there's somebody just saying, hey, just 140 characters, man. Just tell me what you're doing, man. And but the point is that we're being changed and we don't even know it. And this guy is probably to blame, right? Because before him, anybody could participate. He could participate, but he had to write code. And after that, in the creation of WYSIWYGs, the entire Brady Bunch. So a question as simple as 140 characters is actually transforming our behaviors, right? So much so that they named him Time Life Man of the Year. It's unearthed the revolution. So the big point here is, I think, one, that we as a collective in digital, have to start thinking a little bit more about society, and what we're doing is actually changing society, and we should be conscious of that. But even more important, it's talking about, it's talking about the transformations that society is going through. The good thing is that, and here's the Atlantic, a lot smaller this time though, right, is that it's actually making us smarter. But what's interesting is, and I'm sure all of you know this, that what we're facing is, how are we going to evolve to deal with the sheer amount of knowledge that we're creating? But it's not just society that's being transformed. I heard there was a great iPad day here that I wasn't able to participate in, but it's actually business, and this guy is to blame, so whenever you see him next, let him know it's issues. But the rise of tablets and the transformation in usage and the consumer adoption of these technologies are at a pace that we've never seen before. In fact, the web is dead, right? New models for purchasing are threatening our businesses every single day. Millionaires are being made by emerging technologies. This great article on Harvard Business Review talks about social media being the largest business phenomenon that they've ever recorded, that they've ever seen.